Get revved up. It's 4-0. Why are we not recording?
We are recording.
Oh, amazing.
Gotcha. You're listening to Science Means Business, the Helical Brew series where strategy, sales, and science collide. This week, Glaser on platform adoption, lab pain points, and why smart questions lead to smarter sales. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Helical Brew. And this is another episode in our Science Means Business series. And we're glad to welcome Glaser. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on to the Helical Brew. And you are a technical innovation leader, antibody and cell therapy strategist. I believe we first came across one another when you were at MDC.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah.
MolDev for me.
MolDev
Yes.
for you, MDC, right? That's. I know. I've worked with opcos for a long time. I know the speak within the group, right? But that's MDC and I don't know. There was another one for Beckman, but I can't remember their. Yeah, no worries, don't sweat it. But so just a quick introduction and welcome everybody to Science Means Business, the Helical Brew series spotlighting the people turning breakthrough science into real-world success. Today's guest is Allison Glaser, a seasoned technical and commercial strategist who helped biotech companies bring complex platforms to market without losing sight of what labs actually need. Allie has built a career in some of the industry's most demanding niches: antibody discovery, cell therapy, automation, from molecular biology to client-facing strategy. Her superpower is translating dense science into intuitive, scalable solutions. With leadership roles at companies like Molecular Devices, Berkeley Lights. Oh, we also cross paths over there with mutual colleague John and. Yep. Yeah.
They're now Bruker, right?
Now Bruker, which I was like, wow, that's, Bruker's acquired quite a few companies over the years and usually over in Europe, the ones I remember the most. But then, yes, seeing that they got acquired by Bruker was cool. Anyway, and Lightcast, to finish what I was saying, she's seen firsthand what it takes to move from innovation to adoption. So, Allie, we always like to start with an icebreaker. Break the ice. We've been breaking the ice, getting things rolling, and I'm glad we got everything going to record the episode. And so you've worn lots of hats, from early R&D to customer strategy. What's one thing your bench scientist self would never have expected about the business side of biotech?
Yeah, I would say what really surprised me was how many decisions aren't driven by scientific reasoning or data. So the business side tends to be a lot more reactive than proactive. And even if they are being proactive, their decisions are often based on emotions or urgency rather than kind of your structured scientific deduction. And I don't mean that negatively. It was just really surprising as a scientist. I was used to decisions being made through experimentation and evidence, feedback loop, rinse, repeat. But in the business world, decisions are often made by perception, politics, and certainly pressure. And that's something I'm still learning and adjusting to.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like shiny object syndrome, right? Where you're like, oh, wait, it's a cat toy jumping around. Oh, wait, no, it's focus can change very quickly. Right, or a laser, right? Yeah, if you want. Poor cat. But I mean, that's poor us, right? Or, if you've got the scenario where things are directions are being changed before the boat can even get any momentum in one particular direction, that's hard to follow sometime. But I mean, that's science and business meeting one another. The scientific method and the business method don't necessarily align. And I guess that's kind of our role in a lot of ways. I mean, we're in customer facing roles, right? We have to try to align customer expectations, often scientists, to what the business does. It's definitely a challenge. But I like what you said. It's not not doing what the actual end customers sometimes are aligned to, and
Right.
And that's where we come in, I guess. Right. So in our first segment, starting out, you've said you can't innovate in a vacuum. Can you share an example of where understanding the customer ecosystem change the outcome?
Yeah. You know that I was once on the product customization team. It was actually at Molecular Devices, I can say. And I worked closely with cell line development customers, and they needed to prove that their cell lines were monoclonal, and that is like being derived from one cell. And that was an essential requirement for IND filings. And so there was this industry standard, the ClonePix, but at some point it started gathering dust in the closets because it didn't meet industry need. And we kept on trying to push sales of it, but it's like, no one's even using it. So starting with one customer, a team of us came up with a modified ClonePix, which could actually image and track single cells in this like 1 mil of methylcellulose matrix, which is exceedingly hard to do. But ultimately we delivered on that. That solution scaled globally and earned us a patent too. So it really reflects how impactful that customer-driven innovation can be.
Yeah, for sure. That's great when you can take a product and reassign it in a way to a new purpose, new destination. I think, didn't that also happen with I remember like the flipper was a big thing in the early 2000s, and then not specifically on Molecular Devices instruments, but I mean, I remember that was a big thing for a while, and then it kind of, I didn't see it for much. And then now there was some essay that popped up where it's like, this is the perfect device. And I started seeing them come back again. Yeah. That's
So on the product side, when did you get pulled in? Was it when the client was like, hey, I'm trying to do this. I think your machine can help me. I just don't know how to do it. And then you sort of conceptualize what that would look like within that context?
Well, so it was declining sales. And we kept on hearing from customers, like this voice of customer, this is what's important to us. This is what's important to us. But the company didn't want to invest resources into designing that product. It seemed like way too complicated and way too much R&D and years and years. And then it was actually someone who had kind of that innovation mentality who was at Moldab that was talking to a customer, and the customer said, okay, we're going to pay you like X amount of money to develop this. Can you do it? And it took a lot of convincing from management, like there's a one-off product that we're going to do. But we ended up doing it. And that actually turned into kind of a model within that group, like pay for what you need. But then you don't want one-off. So it was like, well, this actually addresses the market need and what they've been yelling at us for years and years. So it's worth this one-off paying customer to develop something that was going to be used and implemented by others.
Yeah, I guess that's where my question was coming from, is how do you justify like one-offs potentially, right? But sometimes, the culture within a company doesn't catch up fast enough with what's actually needed. And I've had some third-party vendors tell me, well, this is a one-off, so you have to pay like, this many tens of thousands for it. I'm like, you don't understand. Every lab I'm in needs this. This is not a one-off, so you have to kind of eat some of that cost,
So what I did in that case is we were all trying to convince management, but I sat down. It was this optics guru and a software engineer, and we were like, why does this matter? And so I literally like mapped it on the board, like what the customer pain points were, like in terms of dollars and time. And it's like, this is like what all our customers need to get to, and this is where they're currently doing, and this is the holdup. And if we could solve this problem, basically like outline the business case for that. And optics engineer and the software engineer, I learned a lot from them too that day. They were telling me about how like you image a cell and then it goes out of focus. So we all learned from each other, but we got it. And we're like, this is a business case. Let's go to management and just show them like, this is why doing the solution adds so much value to our customers.
And so you had data to show them, which is great because it leverages your background.
Yes. Data-driven solutions. Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest eye-openers for me, like I would say 2 years I was dabbling in the automated incubator business. It brought me closer to the cell line development community a little bit. And I was fascinated by the just amount of detail in the preparation and also the methods, that from one group to the next, because I would hear it in product requirements, right? I would hear, hey, can your incubator do this? Can your incubator do that? Right. It was very interesting to see from one group to the next, the kind of differences in view. I mean, everybody's growing cells at the end of the day, but that was cool to learn about that. And also, hooking it up to an imager, right?
Oh, yeah.
Incubator, robot, imager,
Yes.
run. Let's go.
Go.
Well, printer imager, or yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could
Yeah.
like monitor the cells and okay, go back in the incubator. Now come out, go back, see what's going on. Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, because it's not like, like the luminescence and things like that, the traditional, like, those type of reading technologies. It's just way more simplistic than actually having to look at a cell and then look at its size, measure it, and, how many are there? Is it thriving? Is it not thriving? Yeah, seemed like way more complex calculations needed to be made on that. But yeah, so I mean, before we, I wanted to kind of branch off, like how did you kick off your career and get into this business? I mean, it's just a kind of sideline with a little background. How did you get into this business? I always love hearing the story.
Yeah, because you have so many good quotes too. You can't innovate in a vacuum.
Yeah. How do you come up with this stuff?
It was poetry. I don't know. Yeah, it was poetry major. No, I wasn't. It's funny. I was determined to be a surgeon. I was super wanting to be a surgeon. I was like pre-med, but I fell in love with chemistry in college. So I ended up with a chemistry degree, but then I couldn't afford med school. So I ended up I worked for a startup biotech company doing like assay design. It was like 5 people and I was like the only one in the lab. And then I moved across the country and I ended up just sticking with the lab because, when you think you're out of college, I can save up money for med school on my first year out of college salary. Sure. So I ended up doing research and doing a lot of stuff in the lab. And I was working at the Naval Research Lab doing more of like biothreat detection. And it was kind of a lab where you had to design your own instrumentation because the government didn't have any money. So you're taking like art pens and like unfilling the art, like repeatograph pens and filling them in with like antibody solutions and just making your own little microarrays. So I got used to kind of troubleshooting the lab and being real creative. And then I got a call from a recruiter. I was like, how would you like to be a field service engineer and application scientist? And I was like, so I've never got to operate on humans, but I could operate on robots. Cool. And I would get to like get out of the lab. Everything would be different. I would travel the world, eventually travel different to customer sites, see what they're doing. And kind of taking my background and scientific knowledge, but bringing it, like being able to train them, being able to troubleshoot the systems. And one thing led to another. So I just kept on going down that commercial path, getting more and more commercial experience and sales experience and marketing experience and customer support experience. So it just kind of just was like this rolling path. And here I am.
Yeah.
They always say the path you're fated to walk is the easiest one, right?
I can relate to that, right? I mean, when I was an applications person starting out in robotics, it was more customer exposure that got me more interested in the customer facing role. And
exactly.
That became fun. And it was like, it's like some people say, you're going to the dark side. You know that, right? And they're like, and I'm like, yeah, it's sales, but
yeah,
fine. But I can totally relate with that. So you got more and more into kind of that role of supporting customers and what they needed.
Supporting customers, but also advancing scientists, getting creative and finding like where solutions wouldn't like the standard didn't work. So starting to do more customization and automation, but also looking at innovation, which is how I ended up at Berkeley Lights, like really cool new tech that did, instead of like, and sorry, Mike and Sura, I know you're automation gurus, but instead of like, putting like 8 instruments with a track, it was like the beacon at Berkeley Lights. It was like all in one. It could do this.
Oh yeah.
This, right?
Dense.
And so it was like, right. Oh yeah, it's a beast. But it was like getting into that. And the more I got into this new tech, it also helped me get more into the market development perspective and like, what does the market need now? What does it need in 10 years? How can we position the product? So I kind of started going down more the market development and strategic relationship route too.
Which I think is great for your career path, as you're trying to like go towards your strengths and things like that. I just know that I missed you once you went down that path, because as you know, as a person who's innovating in automation, you want to find like-minded people to kind of push the boundaries. And when you've got a colony picker that's closed off in all API and what you can do, it really helps to have an advocate from the vendor side to be like hearing your innovation ideas and actually helping you within that black box as much as they can. And I think Allison was that for me in my roles.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Getting the inside scoop, especially, right, when you're working with something that's closed off. We hear that pretty often, Sura, would you say?
All the time?
Oh, yeah, like every episode, I think, maybe, if we're talking about instrumentation. It's like, oh, this device is closed off. Good luck getting what you need out of it, or
right.
I love but that always comes up when you're trying to teach somebody on how to integrate the robot into their system as well, because it's just like integrating an instrument. Depending on how the API is, it makes that either really hard or really easy. And we've gone the other direction to make it as easy as possible. But
well, especially when you're a tinkerer, right? Like, why can't I tinker with this?
I want to tinker with this instrument. Yeah, why can I not tinker? Yeah, right. I want to put the big exhaust on it. I want all the fancy car. But and that brings me to bringing new products out. You've been involved in bringing new products into the market, right? And I wanted to ask you, like, what does an ideal early stage rollout look like before the marketing kicks in? I mean, marketing. That's a key one I've run into before, right? But anyway, what does that look like to you?
So interesting, I should say, marketing actually always has to kick in first. So even if it's not formalized, like a specific marketing function or department, any early stage rollout requires everyone to think from like a strategic marketing position. Even R&D and your CSOs, you can't have a tool and go, hey, look, there's this really cool tool. Who's interested, right? And customers will be like, well, what does it do? And one strategy is to put it in the hands of like one of those early adopter tech enthusiasts, one of those innovator types eager to get their hands on new tech, and ask them, what do you want it to do? But the issue with that is if you allow for that kind of unstructured mentality, you're not forcing a solution, but then in the early stage rollout, you could have like 5 customers with 5 different applications, which makes support, consecutive feature rollouts really unmanageable if every product is custom. So from like a very early on stage, you have to have a team of decision makers, even if it's just like your engineers, who at least have some kind of idea of what market they want to initially go after. So at least have an initial focus. And then from that point, go after those tech enthusiasts within that market segment that you're thinking about, those beta and alpha testers, to help define scope based on their experience.
Gotcha.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you answered this question already. It's like, where do companies most often miss the mark when commercializing new scientific tools? And you already mentioned one example, right? Is not defining and making decisions early on, so you end up kind of jumping all over the map before you've even defined the product completely. Anything else you can think of?
Yeah, it was mentioning in your other question, you're looking at an early type. What do you do in that early type prototyping? But then what happens when you actually go to the commercializing? And that requires a real shift in the mindset of messaging. So what you tell an early adopter, they might be more open to taking on clunky, buggy products.
Risks and things like that.
Risk. And it's going to fail a lot. But the real key is to engage like those visionary users early on with like clear scientific goals, but those who should help define your product. And then if you invest in them early, they can become your strongest advocate. But I will also mention the other key thing, one of the key marks is the communication and failure to incorporate that voice of customer early and consistently. So a lot of times companies will be like, okay, here's our minimum viable product. Here are our internal specs, and push it on to customers instead of listening to the customer need. And it's understanding that you can't have a minimum viable product or a prototype that has every feature. But in order to actually really help commercialize and bring it to market, you need to have that strong feedback loop from the customers.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Minimum viable, right? We love that term.
And Mike's talked about this also, like in his experience of how just listening to the customers really has helped products be better than they could have been in isolation, right?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Any difference between, what real world innovation means to you now compared to earlier in your career? I mean, any
Yeah.
clear changes you've made in the mindset around that?
Yeah, I've changed from chasing the coolest new toy. Like, to me, it was like the coolest new stuff. And instead, like, real world innovation is more like what has the most customer impact. So instead of just being like the wow factor, like when you're like, wow, look at these cells doing this, it's also like, can the customer use it? Can they get what they need out of it? Are they going to continue getting the results they want? Are they going to adopt that platform and have it integrate seamlessly into their workflow? That to me is true real world innovation.
Yeah. I mean, so that leads to, what's the difference between a platform that gets adopted and one that doesn't? If you're, having all that experience, what made the difference? Yeah.
It's ease of use, it's ease of setup, reliability, flexibility on overcoming issues. Software and data analysis is huge. So I know some customers that use so many tools to generate data, but then the data analysis is their biggest bottleneck. And the other thing is too, like, I know platforms I've worked with where it takes like half a day to set them up, right? And if you can't get that done, if the customer constantly has that, then they're not going to really adopt that, especially when you're looking at innovation, like workflow cells that are automated, and you spend half the day trying to just get the software to start, but like instrument A isn't talking to the robot, and then the robot crashes into a hotel and the grippers are bent, and you spend half your day like dataming the whole system because somehow, even when you fix it, some other datum point got off. And so it's like 6 o'clock at night and you finally hit the start button. If you don't get those kinks out early, the customer's not going to adopt the platform.
Yeah, it could be the coolest tech ever, but that does not sound like a day I want to happen more than once.
I've seen it happen a lot.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Yeah, in robotics, we have a saying: a quick way to make a customer unhappy is, ask them to teach points more than 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
They'll give you once, they'll give you twice, 3 times. Okay, that's on the limit. But yeah, if you're constantly having to mess with an instrument,
jog
because
this way, jog back that way, jog up, jog all day long.
That's right. It's something is fundamentally wrong here. We are not moving forward. We are going backwards on the field, or we're staying put. This is not going to work. Yeah. Yeah, recognizing that, right? I mean, with your customers, and, making sure that the resources are invested to take care of it. Let's get this kink out of here, right? If we're going to, I think it's a huge, huge point you make there. I mean, you really need to get the kinks out. And really, like, find that high-risk customer and let them get frustrated with it, because you've got a little more leeway, right? They've got a little more bandwidth. They've agreed to it. They're like, hey, problem, child. you agreed. You said you were going to be cool with this. You got access to the new technology. Now I need some feedback.
But that's a good point. I do find that a lot of companies don't spend a lot of time debugging their systems thoroughly. So I like that idea of just making sure you have your like loyal clients or customers and just be like, hey, this is new. Can you like play with it for me? I know like Dynamic Devices did that with me a couple times, and it was nice to have that feedback loop with them.
Yeah, definitely.
And they sought out users like you, right? I mean, they really wanted to have your feedback. They wanted somebody who was going to push the limits of the machine and be able to provide that feedback. Because if all you do is you just use it like another, device, then you're not necessarily going to get that feedback.
And they knew that I was going to do stuff to it that no normal person probably would. So if it passes in my hands, it'll probably be good for the average person.
Thank you for the firmware interface.
So I put this layer on top, and
heads up, circle. Okay.
ReadySoft did that too. Andy wrote me something. He's like, we've never done this before. I'm like, okay, well, let's just do it. Then I did it a couple of times. He's like, oh, hey, that looks good. We're going to roll that into our next product launch. So it's nice to get that feedback. Yeah.
The world and vectors need more people like you, Sura.
Oh, shucks.
So hopping in the other chair briefly, Allie, I mean, what questions should scientists ask when they're evaluating a tool, see if it fits? They
should ask a lot of questions.
A lot of questions.
Fortunately, scientists are good at that. I think the major thing is they need to ask about upstream and downstream compatibility. So by implementing that tool, will it provide a continuity to their process or will it disrupt and require change? So do they have to prepare samples any differently to be compatible with the system? Importantly, too, is the output from the system, is it compatible with their current downstream process, or are they going to have to add steps? Things like Labware compatibility.
It's a big one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
minimum
great point.
volume.
Yeah.
Oh, Labware. Oh my gosh, I've had so many Labware.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Minimum volumes, what kind of density is sample? Like if they go into the expectation that they only need, 1,000 cells and they need 1,000,000, that's a problem. How flexible the system should be if their workflow changes in the future. Like if they go from, I don't know, an adherent line to a suspension line, or if they change species of animals that they're driving antibodies from, how flexible the software is. And then I think most critical and increasingly critical is the data output. What's the size of the data output? Are we talking terabytes, megabytes? What kind of data files are generated, TIFF or Excel, like how compatible it is with other processes? I knew someone that every run they got 6 or 7 different Excel files off the instrument, and they had to import it into their LIMS system. But in order to do so, they had to reformat their CSVs, each and every one. And while it didn't hinder their use of the instrument, I'm sure they would have questioned that before they purchased, or at least done something to alleviate that pain point.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen. I remember one customer like did a bunch of imaging, and then like later on realized we need a 10 gigabit uplink to be able to deal with
Ouch.
all this data in the cloud. Yeah, right. Okay, well,
Ouch.
those don't necessarily grow on trees. Fortunately, they were in an area that was really fiber heavy, and they were able to get it. But I mean, yeah, that's kind of like your plate thing, right? Well, this thing is going to produce more data than we can actually store. So we have to put it in the cloud, and how do we do that? But yeah.
But I like the idea of like, will it grow like with you as your workflow changes? Because I think sometimes they're so focused on what they need right now. I'm always finding myself in a position of like, yes, but this is what you need now. What will you be doing in the future, and will it grow with you, right?
Exactly. Pharma, academia especially, but even pharma, processes change. You get new projects or targets. You just get new people being in like process development that totally want to change the way that things are done. And so you need to have that, $1 million, $2 million, $500,000 system kind of go with those changes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
And I see in this industry that, it's not like, iPhone manufacturing, right? If there's any automation in use, they have to retool every device, right? Whether it's a phone, iPhone or any phone, right? They get changed every year. This in the biotech and research markets, these pieces of equipment are often in use for 10 plus years. And so I think it highlights how important it is to look at the future and how you want to use this instrumentation. Robots are the same way. You undersize the robot or get just enough. You're like, yeah, but I just want to have this one more instrument. It's like, well, we got to get a bigger robot. That's, not the end of the world, but it's like you can kind of scale it and set the expectations. Well, speaking of robots and automation, let's talk some automation success and automation sideways. I'm going to call it that way instead of failure. Success or sideways, right? I mean, you've led installs, sales, and strategy. What's a story that taught you something big about adoption?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is what I was already saying with like, if you take all day to set something up just to get something to work, it can be either a huge success if you are successful and automate the process in a real wow factor, but not. But like, in terms of like any kind of instrumentation automation fail, like there was one thing I was working on and we were just trying to get some cells on it, and there kept on being like a thermal fault error that was like 1 or 2 points outside of what was acceptable. And so it wouldn't let us continue. Like, it was like, come on, there should be something that allows us to override it being 1 point over the max limit. Like, right?
Get
and
a
so
cooling fan.
Right. I was
Who
actually
set
like,
that buffer? Yeah.
I actually said, should we like turn the air down, the ambient temperature in the room, turn off like the hoods in case they're generating heat, just so we can get it down. But yeah, and then so by the time that we finally got the spec down, the day was over and the cells weren't happy and they were dead.
They didn't
Oh,
make it.
Yeah. And then you're also asking about like things that have gone sideways or
yeah. I mean, well, I think that's an example of things that went
especially
sideways.
yeah,
That's a good,
just in general.
I mean, because what do we, we learned certainly, it has a big impact when something that was a deliverable goes sideways, right? I mean, when you have that feedback, because there's money behind it, right? We got to make money with this thing, and next time's got to hit correctly.
Yeah.
It's I've seen it in the robot world too. It's like, well, this finger mechanism was way too fancy and complicated. All we needed was a simple pair of pinch fingers to pick up a plate, right? And then they went way too complex, and the thing's dropping plates or potato chipping things or whatever, and the plates are flying off the end of the robot because the fingers aren't, right. I mean, that happens, right? You're like, let's not do that. But stories like that, where automation high bar, but ended up low bar, or you had to do some work was required to kind of bring it back to life.
I will
That's what
say
I call
one success
sideways.
thing. Sideways. I will say one
But
success.
sometimes even like the tech is solid, but it still goes sideways, right? Like that's
Yeah. And that's even like when the tech is like really good. I would say when things go sideways, it's more like on the customer relationship. I know I keep going back to customer relationship. Like there was this one particular customer that comes to mind. They were using the tech. It was solid. Their lab loved it. They used it. They preached about it. They did conferences. But there was a lot of attrition in the company I was working for at the time. And so that customer was being passed from person to person, none of who understood what mattered to that customer. They had to complete, like repeatedly re-explain what their scientific goals and workflows were. And they had to regurgitate previous conversations and promises from employees that were no longer at the company. So that led to understandably extreme frustration on the part of the customer. Like they literally, even though the tech was working for them, they almost stopped using that incredible technology for their projects because of that relationship that totally went sideways and they did not feel heard or understood. The good news is we salvaged that and they're back praising that instrument. So
Good.
yeah.
Sometimes
But
that's
it was
that's required.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
But I mean, like that's important because you spent so much money on that instrument. It's not even the promises, it's just the feeling understood enough that if anything happens with what you're doing with that instrument, they can have that quick turnaround time instead of let's have a 2-hour conversation to figure out what they're even talking about, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And just repeating yourself endlessly like that is so frustrating, especially if you're, a researcher that has limited time as well, and you're so focused on getting the output that you need.
Yeah. I would totally record myself and just be like, here, listen.
They should have done that.
Here you go.
Throw that in the documentation package. Listen when needed.
The SOP has an MP3 file.
It's an interesting way to deliver your SOPs. Yeah. Or just like you're busy or distracted, you might miss something, right? You're like, or you might not acknowledge that they're going to miss it. So it's just like, here, could you listen to this? Well,
but do you feel like the people that like finally became that customers like point people, that they got all the information? Like what turned that relationship around? Was it just the consistency?
It was making them feel important. It was being like, okay, we're going to bring you in and we're going to get everyone on board to, higher up and everyone involved. Like we brought them into headquarters. We brought in a bunch of the higher ups in management to go out to dinner and have them be heard. And I think a lot of times customers just want to be heard. I mean, obviously they want their solution solved for them too, but sometimes when you're really frustrated, right, you just want to be heard and have the vendor be like, I hear you. Let's work on doing something better about this. So we did that. We also did a feasibility study for them to show them something kind of like their dream vision and if it could be achieved, which required being in the lab till like 3:00 in the morning on a Friday to get it to work.
Wow.
Dedication.
Sometimes you just need to talk
that's
it
like
out.
Part
right?
and parcel though for like you, Allie. You always go the extra mile for people.
That was definitely a little extra mile.
But sometimes you just need to talk it out, right? I mean, a customer,
Yeah.
and you might, a lot of times those conversations with a little bit of frustration, a lot of problem solving can come from that just by listening patiently to that. Since I found that to be a huge thing listening more than talking. That's lesson
And
number one.
acknowledging,
Yeah,
yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure you've had many of these moments, but we could probably have a 3-hour show on your number of MacGyver moments, but give us a MacGyver moment, that you've had
Wow.
where like, ta-da, save the day,
Yeah. Well, I had my anti-MacGyver time. It was actually on a QPix. Talking to a company to do
MacGyver sideways edition.
Anti-MacGyver. I love it.
I do have a MacGyver example, but I had because you're like doing this, and I was like, well, there's this one time I walked into a customer site and turned on their QPix, and the entire power went out in the entire company.
Oh, okay. Powerful instrument.
Wow.
I knew it was
Have you
powerful,
seen that
but
thing
not that
move?
powerful.
Totally.
But I do have a better example too. And I think, Sura, you'll probably also appreciate this one too, because this was also at MoldEv, and we had this automated QPix platform for picking microbial colonies. And so it was essential that one customer is using deep well plates for inoculating colonies. So the QPix deck didn't allow for barcodes to be read at the bottom of the deep well, only at the top. So I had an engineer, automation engineer, go absolutely ballistic on me about how this wasn't like ANSI SLS standards and how it messed up his entire downstream, upstream processes and limb syncing, all that. And so I believe the proposed workaround at the time by the company was, we'll just stick a barcode on the bottom and the top. And that was not a go. It was like twice as much work, and I get it. And so I wasn't an engineer. I was a field application scientist at the time. But I think that field application scientists are the ones who have the most MacGyver moments because you don't have like a toolbox on you. You're just like,
you might be out there
happening?
alone too. No service person, nothing,
Always, right?
And usually a scientist right here staring at you.
Oh, yes. There's a scientist or an automation engineer yelling at you. And of course, you're like in a lab with no cell service. Right. So I did some kind of combination of jiggling the barcode reader, like random angle with like random things in the lab, like washers or something. But then I had to perform some weird software voodoo thing. I can't remember exactly, but I had to trick the software into thinking when it read the barcode, it wasn't a deep well plate. So it would go low. But when it inoculated the colonies, that it was a deep well plate, so the actuator didn't go into the bed and crash it. So I did that.
That's what I call MacGyver.
That is true MacGyver. Yeah.
It's something about barcodes. I did it the same on a one time where the customer wasn't using a plate compatible with the system. And so the plate goes on an imager, glass plate, the vacuum is applied, and the barcode reader couldn't read. So this time I had to adjust the barcode angle so steep because I couldn't back it off enough to read because it's short of an inch. Yeah, you know what I mean. And so I like angled it but it was like kind of dangling. So I used like lab tape in the lab to like wrap it all up and tighten it up to make it secure and read consistently. So something about barcodes. I don't know.
I was going to say, I think a lot of my MacGyver moments have to do with barcodes also. Because sometimes they give you an ability to like increase or decrease the range of read. Mm-hmm. But if a static head is pointing at that angle, there's only so much you can do. So it makes sense that you had to do like a software, hardware combo thing.
It was voodoo.
Voodoo.
Yeah.
What is that voodoo that you do? No,
that actually speaking of like MacGyver, I mean, it is kind of a MacGyver for the PF400. That was something about, I don't know, 8 years ago, folks started doing is you could put a Keyence 1D barcode reader on the end of the robot. And that was now a mobile barcode reader. So you could adjust the robot and reposition the barcode reader, just using the robot. And that became kind of popular.
I totally did
for
that.
reasons like that, because you're like, oh, I need to. This one won't read this way. Well, fine. Back the robot off an inch. There it goes. Works fine. Yeah. Mobile barcode reader. But a little bit expensive for a mobile barcode reader. Barcode reader, $1,000. Robot, $30,000. But, whatever. When you need it, you need it. But you can also, you do you. You can also use the robot to move plates too. So that's an added bonus. But no, that's cool. Yeah.
That was a good MacGyver moment.
Yeah, I like MacGyver moments. I think it tells a great story of kind of, you're in the field, and I know how it is. I've seen it. So I'm often, making calls to customers that have active projects with other vendors, right? And I'm like, it's almost always the field application scientist that's hanging out by the
Yes,
machine. And there's like a salesperson's gone.
always.
Yeah.
Service person, nope. It's like it's a field applications person that's kind of has to be the jack of all trades. Hey, I need to call my service person. Okay, and but you learn a lot from it, though. You really do learn a lot, and
Yes.
thinking on your feet. So that's why the MacGyvers.
Home under pressure, MacGyver moments.
Now switching gears to maybe paying it forward a little bit, like I find myself more and more doing, where we're always doing it, right? Teaching and things like that and training. But, what should scientists and engineers know before jumping into the commercial side of biotech?
2 and 3 priorities. The first, second, and third, I should say, is customer focus. You can think like scientists and engineers like, oh, this is a perfect solution. This is brilliant. But if your customer's like, you need to pay attention to that. I recommend what I learned from the synthetic biology space of design, test, or design, build, test, learn, except replace like your DNA assembly methods with customers in mind. So before your next iteration, learn from the customers to help you do that design and build. And then, of course, please test before you give it to the customer. Like just a few times. So just kind of thinking that way and then having that laser customer focus is really what's a priority.
Yeah.
Did you go through that a lot when you were kind of making that transition? Because I know coming from technical space, like you love the ideas that you have around some of the solutions. But to your point, if the love is not reciprocated, you have to sort of pivot, right? How do you deal with that coming from that transition?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was different for me a little bit because I was a field application scientist for so many years that I learned from them on what gave them that wow moment. And it was me feeding that back. I think as I started moving more into more like a technical sales kind of roles, and I'd be like, you could do this. And I'd get a response and it's like, like, whoa.
You could do whatever you wanted to do.
But you just have to learn from that and learn like maybe I'm not getting to the customer's pain point correctly. If they're not wowed by what I'm wowed, then maybe I need to adjust and learn, like maybe ask more questions about their needs, their pain points.
Yeah, like where's that alignment disconnect happening? Yeah.
And
pain
don't
points are
let it
huge.
get to you. Thick skin, don't let it get under your skin.
Yeah, pain points are such a big one. That I think is the art form of listening that improves over time, right? You kind of listen for the part that's the pain point, because the whole thing, you might have an elaborate discussion, right? It might require a lot of background to give you the backstory. Sometimes it's a needle in the haystack to find the actual pain point. I remember it was one acceleration parameter of the robot that nobody in the software chain actually knew about. I walked in, they're like, this robot vibrates. It's like oscillating, it's like, it's one parameter. You want me to change it? I'll do it right here. I don't, and they're like, okay, yeah, and that's it. Right. But it's just the right person looking at it. That's what it came down to. But also asking more questions like, okay, so you can ask the other, somebody else the right question and figure out what the answer is, because you can't always do it by yourself, or you need to call another vendor or something like that. But I think it's a great point. What technical skills have surprisingly paid off for you in terms of like, in strategic roles? Like what things have you studied this or learned this, and you're like, oh, wow, this really comes in handy?
Yeah, I think like the solid understanding of upstream and downstream processes on a deeply technical level. Yeah,
Okay.
having, cultured cells before, run my own Western blots, done, PCR amplification, just understanding those minor nuances when you're positioning a product and understanding. I think there is I don't know how this came into the conversation, but recently I had a conversation about my days of labeling proteins to fluorescent dyes came in handy. I'm like,
No.
like, do you remember, I think it was molecular probes, and then it turned in Vitrogen, and then it turned whatever they are,
Molecular
light.
probes, I remember.
Yeah. And so I used to do a lot of that. And somehow it came into handy because we were trying to talk about kind of their vision of what they wanted to do with the product and what they needed to do in order to get it to work. I don't know. It's weird. Like, oh.
It's like you're able to just go back to that bit of knowledge and like, oh, we will put this to work. That's cool.
It gets you to understanding faster, right? You don't have to have this prolonged discussion. It's like, I get what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah,
Very
definitely.
cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
it's good to be technical, folks.
It's always
I
good
love
to
it.
be technical. Yeah. I mean, just the programming, the value of doing programming in your, whether it's in your studies or in any role, I mean, has gone up tenfold. I think just in the time Python. I mean, when I first started, it was like lots of proprietary stuff. Now I hear Python more than the proprietary stuff. You know, it's like really gotten to be a go-to for labs, and maybe that'll change. It'll become something else, but it seems like that's been a big one. And I mean, so what advice do you have for someone that is trying to move from the lab into the commercial world, the marketplace?
Don't do it. Don't go to the dark side.
Hey, we have cookies.
Don't do it, Luke.
Don't do it. I would say have a defined market segment. Like if you are trying to innovate something and you're trying to commercialize it or you're just trying to bring it to market, you focus on dominating a specific market, not like everything out there. And then if there's other competitors in that market, make sure, absolutely crucial, to have strong differentiators into what you believe that your product or what your innovation was in the lab, how it can differentiate you. And building that solid base in that particular market segment will really help your reputation when you go into other market segments. Then also advice when you're innovating, please have a reliable product. It doesn't have to be perfect, but don't let it kill their cells. Like if you're an engineer, get some biologists on board to bring in the biology perspective. Like that's so critical. Like if you don't have biology giving that piece of input to your engineering solution, you're going to have some huge misses, and vice versa. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're not making razor blades here. We're making cells, okay, folks. So yeah, you need expertise behind that, and I think that's been an area where I've seen a lot of crossover between automation companies and scientific spaces where you're getting sort of an industrialized amalgam of the two, to be able to look at that in a way that's practical, right? You're not just great tool, doesn't work, but great tool. You hate to have that one as your closing call. That's awesome. It looks beautiful. Doesn't do a thing.
Kills my
Doesn't do
cells.
the thing. Yeah.
Doesn't do the thing, right? Yeah. I asked you for one thing: grow cells, and we're not doing that.
Yeah. I've seen that, sadly.
Yeah, I think we all have. It's like overdone, underdelivered. But we strive. We learn from that and trying to avoid it. But
Definitely.
we have a special segment in our show for those that have watched before. It is the pick of the week, and I had a pick of the week, but I just drove back from the Bay Area, and so I was not able to get my pick of the week ready in time for me getting.
Did you leave it somewhere?
No.
Is it in the airport?
It's I didn't have time to unpack it. But anyway, the guest rules on this one. Guest first. If you have a pick of the week, can be an article, podcast, a book. Doesn't have to be anything, physical. It can be a link to something or a recommendation. Piece of advice, too.
Certainly not any of my headphones. Those are definitely not.
We had some technical issues before the podcast.
Can I have two picks of the week?
Of course. You can have as many as you want. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Because I was like, I don't know. So the first one, I'm going to have to go with a lighter note. It's like I was on a plane last weekend rewatching a movie, and it was BlackBerry. So I highly recommend it. It's a true story.
I heard about that.
Research in motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like their race to create the first smartphone. So you've got these two stereotypical techie founders with like zero commercial experience. They're just like your techie nerds. And they're trying to bring their product to market. And it's funny, it's chaotic, but it's surprisingly insightful. Beneath that the comedy, there are real lessons about platform adoption and the scaling innovation, especially when, 2007 comes around and Steve Jobs is like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
got
We've talked about that so many times,
emails.
right?
That was a fast decline, And didn't that company have two CEOs, right? It was kind of a weird, like,
Yeah, there was like the tech guy
Like a
that became a
co-CEO.
yeah,
CEO, and then there was like the typical business guy.
very
Yeah.
Canadian, very agreeable.
Mm.
Like,
Yes.
well, we get along. It's fine. We could have two CEOs.
All I know is I went from having a BlackBerry to an iPhone in like 2 seconds flat.
Right.
So something happened.
And that first iPhone was rough, though. Yeah,
Was that the one with a dial? No, that was the iPod with a little
iPod.
dial. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Yeah,
But Steve Jobs, when he launched the iPhone, he actually teased everybody just for joking. He put an iPod up that had a rotary dial phone thing on it. Yeah, just to joke with people and kind of break the ice before he did the big reveal. That was pretty funny. It's like, oh, and this is the new phone iPod thing that we're coming up with.
Thing.
I'll have to check that one out.
Trusting
I put that
Yeah.
in my queue on my movie app, and I never watched it. But now you've just pushed me over on that. That'll
Oh.
be something I'll watch. Yeah,
It's super really cool to learn about how technologies are being developed, and then all of a sudden, well, I don't want to give it away, but the BlackBerry guy keeps on trying to convince people why they want to keep using their BlackBerries instead of iPhones, and he's like, but it does this and this and this, and people are like,
Yeah.
we don't care. So it's a must one.
they're like, and the iPhone people are like, scroll.
You have buttons, man. Like, game over.
And then, okay, so my second pick I was going to go is more serious, but it's a book called Crossing the Chasm by Jeffrey Moore. It's incredibly relevant. It's definitely a marketing-focused book, but I think it's really relevant for engineers, scientists, sales teams, anyone trying to bring what we've been talking about a lot today is bringing emerging technologies to market. So it breaks down the bell curve of the technology adoption cycle from your early adopters and tinkerers and innovators and how to bridge the gap between that and your mainstream users, and touches on everything from like your positioning to understanding customer pain points. I think it's a good one for anyone interested in getting into the commercial space and trying to understand how to bring products to market. It's a good one.
Cool. Check that one
Yeah,
out.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Check out
another thing
BlackBerry
I'm
first, though.
interested in. Yeah. No, I love the backstories of companies like that too. I mean, have you ever read?
Yeah.
Did you ever read the book about In-N-Out Burger? That's an I don't know. That
Yeah.
could be my pick of the week. The In-N-Out story. That was.
Okay.
It's just interesting to
Nice.
see the founders. They're from the Netherlands, the Dutch, and Baldwin Park, California. They founded the first In-N-Out, and just their core values and how they had some drama within the family and things like that. And then it was, it wasn't all smooth running, but they were just persistent about the way they wanted to run that business. And you still see it every time you go into an In-N-Out Burger. This thing is just immaculate. They use the top of the line equipment for everything. They take good care of their stuff, and no franchising. It's all 100% owned corporate, but it's kind of cool to
Very
see.
cool.
Yeah, the passion behind it. And it's slowly making its way across the country. I think Colorado is about as far as it goes from what I've heard. I don't think they quite made it to Tennessee
really?
yet, but that's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, that's used to be
I
just
like In-N-Out.
California. Oh, I love In-N-Out
Yeah.
Burger.
Yeah. It used to be you didn't want to like move out of California because you didn't want to lose out on In-N-Out.
No. Thank goodness I have an In-N-Out within 5 minutes of where I live. It's very important.
It's like Starbucks now. There's like an In-N-Out within a few miles of you.
Now, I am jealous of the East Coasters who have more Shake Shacks. We don't have Shake Shack. Well,
Oh, yeah.
you got to go.
We have it at UTC. It's pretty good. Oh, in Del Mar now.
Yeah, I've been to that one, and I've been to the one in Del Mar too. There's the Del Mar, kind of where the craft beer place is, and some other.
Yeah. Across
You
the
know what I'm
street.
talking about?
It's that new
Yeah.
development.
New development.
I
thing.
know.
Anyway,
Yeah. We digress.
Shake Shack. We digress. Shake Shack's one of those you really have to be in a big city to get. And well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Allie, to have you on the show. Really enjoyed talking
It's been fun.
with you. Yeah. This is podcasting. We're I'm not going to say how many episodes in, but were a lot of episodes. I think we've got we've come a long way, and it's been a lot of fun. So having you on has been fantastic, and it's really great to hear the stories of how real innovation happens in the field. I think it's a huge thing, and I always love it when folks go to the dark side. We want to inspire more, because a lot of it is just like, I remember when I first got out of college, I can remember thinking to myself, oh, I will never do this sales business. I was stay in my world of engineering and programming robots, and I will just
Sales business.
I will do this forever, right? You do not understand the power of the dark side. It will draw you in. And there I was. I spent time on the road with one sales guy, and I was pretty much sold. So yeah, I was.
Must have been a great sales guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he just yeah, he knew how to do it. Like, he was a seasoned pro and just knew exactly what he was doing. So it's like, well, I could do that too. So to follow Allie, you can find her on LinkedIn and learn more about commercializing complex workflows, navigating scientific sales, and building tools that actually work in the wild. So we're looking forward to seeing more of what you're doing. And for those who would like to follow the Helical Brew, you can look us up on www.helicalbrew.com. Visit us on youtube.com/@helicalbrew. And now we have, of course, and make sure I get them all, Sura, I think we've got Instagram, we've got TikTok, and of course,
No Twitter yet. Don't
no
give me
Twitter
ideas.
yet, but I don't know. I don't think it's called Twitter anymore. Last I checked.
Yes, which is why we're not on it.
X to the X
Yes.
on the internets and the interwebs. We'll stick with the TikTok and Instagram and shorts on YouTube. Check out some of Sura's shorts on YouTube. They are very cool, and highlights of the shows before the shows come out. So this episode will be coming out on an unsaid date, but it will be coming out soon. And we look forward to seeing you on the show, and we're glad to have you with us. So until next time, this episode of Helical Brew is brewed. Thank you for joining us on the Helical Brew. We're glad to have you with us. For more episodes, please visit our website at helicalbrew.com. That's helicalbrew.com.
Oh my god. So cute.
Yeah, his brother is a little more hesitant and still kind of like hissing and
How long have you had them?
since yesterday.
Okay.
So I'm
So
keeping them
that's why.
sequestered until they're a little more,
So cute.
I know. Especially with our other two cats. So
Yeah. Ship one to Mike.
Yeah, I put like a cat hotel next to the computer here. That'd be the Helical Brew Cat Hotel.
Yes.
We have to get embroidery for it. Thank you for showing the kitten. We were now we feel now the
We're
show
waiting
is
for it.
now the show is complete. We have seen the kitten.